Hi. Season 5, episode 8 of Seeking Sister Wife is a doozy. It is a doozy. Like, straight up, it's a doozy. So, we're going to jump into it because, obviously, last week I didn't get my Seeking Sister Wife episode out, so we are back-to-backing this one. I just told you in the episode 7 one that you probably already watched. If you haven't, feel free to watch it. It only came out a few hours before this one. That, you know, because you guys were so patient while I was so sick with my medication and everything, that we were going to get these out fast. So if you're new here, hi, my name's Cozy. I like to snark about sister wife related shows here on YouTube. I do like to remind you these videos are for entertainment purposes only. These are not facts. They are just my opinions about public figures sharing their lives publicly. So if we're cool, we're cool. This is my co-host Graham. I'll lift up his face for a second. Mwah. He is my potentially Great Dane puppy, and he likes to lay here and be best friends while we talk about sister wives. He was a little bit rambunctious in the last episode, so we're going to hope that he will be good boy and listen good boy while we film this one. So, we're going to jump right on in. As always, we go family by family, so we're going to start with the Ryans. Becky is taking Justin to get a haircut, sort of like she's guiding a child. She is like, oh, I already took care of everything. And she's like, it's been a few weeks since the whole Stephanie incident, and I'm still not sure how I feel. They're still looking and chatting because it's going to be rewarding when they find the right person and they can live this lifestyle that they want to live. None of these people ever stop for a second to consider working on themselves or coming to terms with the heartbreak that they face. You know, they don't ever take a hot minute and just sort of reflect internally. It is wild to me how much they just push past it. Like, this isn't going to shape how you approach future relationships. I understand that a lot of it is because they're on a television show. And when you're on a television show, your life is content. You can't be content when your life is content because you constantly are having to keep moving forward and keep putting yourself out there more and more and more. I make content. I don't make content specifically about the little tiny things I do in my life. I guess if you really wanted to watch me bake bread, I would do that for you. I would make videos of me just babbling about nothing and making bread if that's really what you wanted. But then I don't want to feel locked into a box where I can never be content to just make 2 loaves of bread for my week. I'd have to make 30 or 40 or 50 just so you guys would be happy. No, I'm not going to do that ever. Once again, if you really want to watch me bake bread, I guess we can. It'll be boring. I just use a mixer that needs it for me. Sue me. At any rate, a lot of this just feels more and more fake the more that you watch how they just sort of push through all these relationships and never resolve anything. And I actually started questioning myself. Could I be this fake for a few minutes of reality TV fame? Or even a few minutes of YouTube fame? Could I just be that fake? And I really don't think I could. I am very upfront and honest with you guys about my thoughts, my feelings, and my opinions. And I don't think that I could fake it well enough to be on reality television. I could be dramatic enough because of who I am as a person. That's just who I am. But I don't know if I could fake it. Justin looks super uncomfortable while he's listening on the couch at what Becky's saying, and for once I would actually completely believe this whole thing was the wife's idea because he does seem completely unable to tell her no. She is definitely the domineering one in all of this. And he sits down in the chair and the barber says to him, so what are we looking to do? And looks right at Becky because Becky's like, just clean it up a little bit, make it look sophisticated. There is not much to work with in that regard. Justin keeps his hair pretty darn short, and as such there's just not a ton there to do something with. So the barber's like, is there a special event you're looking forward to or a dinner tonight? Just trying to like gauge what they want done. And Becky gets kind of awkward and is like, it's a date with our potential sister wife. And to his credit, the barber's like, oh, awesome, and tries to stay super casual. But you can still tell there's a little bit of awkwardness in the air. And they reveal that Justin has been talking to a lady named Yari. And it's slow go meeting people on polygamous apps. So, because the ratio of couples to single women is like 100 to 1. So, of course, they decided to go to a traditionally monogamous dating app, which is where they met Yari. And I can already see red flags, because he says when he saw Yari, he's like, whoa, I'm checking this one out. And Becky's like, I'm optimistic, except that I don't think that Yari paid attention to what he was looking for as far as like a second wife on this particular app. Yeah, because if you're on a standard monogamous dating app, you wouldn't. Justin sort of chuckles, and the barber's like, oh, he's asking about the upcoming date, and Justin admits, I didn't tell Yari that I was a polygamist right away. Red flag, red flag, red flag. Red flag everywhere. And he goes even further on the couch, like, I didn't explain to her that I was going to be looking for that type of relationship with her. They chatted and he saved that detail until the end of the first date. And she was immediately like, I don't know, I've never heard of this before. You think maybe because you hid it from her and maybe she actually genuinely has never seen or heard of a relationship like that? And Becky's like, Yari looks fancy, all done up in high heels, so it's very important that Justin looks crisp and like he put time and effort into his appearance. It has been 3 weeks since Justin and Yari have been talking. Just 3. And Justin's like, yeah, I mean, it's an out-of-the-box lifestyle, so it's hard to meet people. And this barber says, it's not out of the box for me, for society, but not me. And that wins points with Becky for sure. And she's like, oh, have you ever cut the hair of a polygamist before? And he's like, absolutely, I'm one myself. He has a partner in Texas and one in New Jersey. And he shares he's been practicing polygamy for about 6 months, and it's fun for him to meet another couple in that community. And he feels like Becky and Justin are just lovely, and they're going to be very successful in polygamy. And Justin's like, that's good to see other people are open about this in general. And Becky's like, yeah, it was pretty cool. Becky admits she's super nervous for tonight and for this big date, and Yari's going to have a lot of questions. And Justin's just excited, but after Stephanie, he still feels some pain. You could have fooled me. He's hoping the date tonight will bring good things, but he's keeping his expectations in check. So basically, Becky is dressing Justin for this date and reminding him, you need to pull out the chair and open doors. This really feels more like a mom caring for her son than a wife and a husband kind of dynamic. It's actually really weird. And Justin's going on this date tonight, and it's clear that Becky wants this to go super duper well. She's like, this lays the groundwork for whether or not I get to meet her, or if we're going to end this right here. And Justin's like, well, I offered to pick her up, but she said no. She doesn't let any of her dates pick her up at her home. And Becky's like, well, I hope she'll at least let you, come out to the car and get her. And Justin's like, we're both pretty excited about this, Becky and I. And Becky reminds him no intimacy or anything like that, no matter what Yari asks for. And Justin's like, well, what if I get drunk? And she's like, you don't drink. I'm getting a little bit of a picture there. And she clarifies that a kiss is fine, but that's as far as it's allowed to go. She doesn't want to make the same mistake they made with Stephanie, where they kept pushing forward until they had gone all the way, because they were committed and she wasn't in their eyes. Becky insists that they will not make this mistake again, and they have to be sure of commitment first. Justin says when Yari matched with him, she definitely didn't read his profile, so he had to explain he was married and looking for polygamy. But not at first, if you'll remember. Yari's been very taken aback by this, but Justin says that she wanted to keep going. They haven't discussed it since that first date, but she did agree to a second one, and both of them were pleasantly surprised at her being so open-minded about the idea, especially since she'd never heard of polygamy before. Yari introduces herself and lets us know that they met on a dating app, and she says their first meeting was a normal dinner. And she's lovely, and she has a very South American accent that I can't place with certainty, but almost sounds kind of Brazilian, possibly. I'm a much better judge of European accents, so I could definitely be pretty far off. But that's the vibe that I'm getting. She says she got surprised with the information that he has a wife. And she's like, tell me more about yourself. And he jumps in explaining that he and Becky have been together since they were teenagers. Yari shares she was a single mom, she says, oh no, and then asks about kids. And he's like, oh, we have 6 kids in total. And she's like, I was a single mom and it was really hard. She says the first thing she tends to ask people when she goes on a date is whether they live alone or with someone else. And she wants to know, does Becky already know about me? And Justin's like, yeah, she does. And explains that he told Becky all about her and how excited Becky was about this. Because, he doesn't keep secrets. Justin said that Becky felt like Yari was definitely his type because her pictures showed her in workout gear, and that's kind of his thing. And he's like, yeah, I'm definitely into working out, and I'm attracted to Arabic and Latina women, plus Yari's super hot. And I have no idea how Becky is sitting there just smiling away as he describes women that are very different from herself as something that he's really interested in. Justin asks if she's open to dating someone like him in this lifestyle, and Yari admits that she's been thinking about it because this is definitely new to her. But if Becky knows isn't okay with it, and Justin's like, I don't keep any secrets. And he's like, she may have dealt with infidelity in her past, and he wasn't as upfront about this relationship type as he should have been. Yari's like, what are the expectations? Like, are you expecting us to date separately or all together? And Justin's like, I'm fine either way. But if they end up being a good match, they're going to just have to figure out how it all works together. And he's like, I feel like I'm really vibing with Yari, but she needs to meet Becky and we see if we all vibe together. And Yari's like, would individual dates be a problem for Becky? And Justin's like, she's not jealous. Justin says that even though they're discussing polygamy, he doesn't think she will fully get it until she really meets and talks with Becky. And they finish up and go for this short walk. Yari's super confused about the expectations. Is it all three of them together? Just she and he? She thinks it's better when everybody tells the truth up front. They hug, and Justin does this like creepy whisper, "Do I get a kiss goodnight? Nobody's looking." Almost like he thinks he's the Dark Knight or something. And to me, it feels like she is obviously trying to avoid this kiss, and it is super awkward. And because I hate secondhand cringe, I will spare you just how awkward I feel like this is. But she's worried about Becky, because what if she prefers to have him all to herself? He's going to have to decide. And she thinks that they'll have to see what's going to happen in the future. So it very much so feels to me that Yari doesn't really understand the expectations and feels like she might be able to have Justin all to herself, whether or not that's the case. So, the Davis family. The Davises are roasting marshmallows and having s'mores after the wives' day out. And April reminds us that Danielle is ready to start dating. Anyone who watched last week knows that's not true, and April definitely duped me into thinking she cared about Danielle's feelings. Yeah. But April's ready to bring Nick into the conversation, and they share about the Smash Room, and Danielle was like, originally I didn't know that I'd want to do this, because I thought, me? Violent? No. But it was so much fun. And Nick's like, I'm sure it was really cathartic, and he's probably right. April's like, the chat afterwards really helped us get to the root of why Danielle is afraid to continue dating. I saw that conversation very, very differently. And I guess we all see what we want to see sometimes. I don't know. Jennifer's like, I think we thought it was time to bring you into the conversation. And Nick actually looks unsure. He's looking at Danielle almost like he's studying her, trying to figure out, are you actually comfortable? Like trying to see something deep in her body language. And he explains that the way they do things is that the sister wives have to look for the next potential sister wife. And he wants to check in with Danielle to see if she's really, truly ready and this is what she wants. Danielle jumps in and says she needs time to debrief before and after dates, almost like a group discussion about these things. Nick points out that if she isn't sure that she should be here, that changes what they are trying to put together. But if she's certain about her being here, but unsure about who else would be here, that is something they can work with. Nick's actually being pretty clear here. Take it or leave it. He's saying if you are sure about your place in this family, you need to be sure about that this is where you belong, because whether or not someone else belongs is a problem for another day. We need to solve the problem of you feeling like you belong. And after April duped me, I am not going to give him a pass just yet, but he actually does seem more concerned about her real feelings than the ladies do. In confessional, Danielle is super anxious, and she reminds us that the next woman to join her relationship would be expected to legally marry her, just like Jenny and April are married. And that's a lot to consider. It is not just a piece of paper. It is not just a small commitment. This would entitle that person to a lot of things. Marital assets, next of kin responsibilities. That's a lot to consider when you aren't even sure you want to be doing this in the first place. Nick asks her, are you sure? And the face Danielle makes looks near to tears, in my opinion. And they cut to Jenny, who just stares at her, and April, who is nodding at her, which has to feel intimidating. And then Danielle says, yeah, if someone's supposed to be sitting here with us, then I want them here. And she says she's ready to get married and find a wife of her own. Everyone gives her praise for the choice, but in confessional, she is playing it cool. And she's like, I'm playing it cool. I am super nervous about this. And she doesn't want them to know that she is absolutely terrified about what could happen. Jenny jokes, let's turn on our dating profiles. And Nick says he's excited about the prospect of finding a wife for Danielle, but he is very concerned that Danielle is not ready and just being agreeable. She is. Okay, the last two families, the Marfields and the Sherwood families, this is where it's going to get intense. I am going to go with the Marfields first and follow up with the Sherwoods, because I actually think I have more to say about that than I do about the Marfields for once. So the first thing we see, in the segment about you is a black screen with white text. That's never good. Never. It pops us to tell us that it's been 2 months since Garrick proposed to Natalia, and 6 weeks ago Garrick left for Brazil. Which means that this man has been gone for nearly the entirety of that 2 months. He went to Brazil somewhere between 2 and 4 weeks after getting back from Mexico. So in 2 to 4 weeks' time, things went so far to heck with Danielle and Garrick, they have essentially separated to different countries. This timeline is a disaster. Holy carp, I can't even. Anyway, Danielle is packing to head down to Rio because she's going to go down there and see them. She feels like, though, since the Mexico trip, Natalia's focus has completely shifted. Unsurprising, considering that 2 to 4 weeks after getting home, the man you claim is your husband took off for another country for nearly 2 months to be with Natalia. They flash back to the fight that we saw last time. And Danielle does not look happy to be packing. She explains that Garrick's in Brazil and they're planning a wedding in order to apply for a spousal visa. And Samantha shows up and points out how unhappy Danielle looks. And she says she isn't happy and she's packing for Brazil. On the couch, Danielle's like, we've spoken about the kids and work and things that we absolutely had to communicate about, but we needed some time apart to do some soul searching and to get right with the Lord. Honey girl, I hope you do. Because I guarantee you this is not his plan for you. For I know the plans that I have for you, he says in Jeremiah, and I think it might be time to trust in that and not in Garrick. Samantha, being the good friend she is helping Danielle pack, and Danielle is tossing clothes still on hangers into the suitcase, sighing and making it obvious something is wrong, and she would very much so like to be asked about it, please, right now, if you think that is a good time for you. Danielle shares that Samantha is informed on what's going on between her and Garrick right now, but she has something else to share. And there are going to be some big changes, and she needs to talk to her. And they make some small talk, and Danielle is very much trying to bait Samantha to asking what's wrong. And to her credit, Samantha doesn't take that bait. It's almost like she's given up on asking because the answer is constantly the same thing. It's always justified by, this is the plan. Danielle finally lets out her best YouTuber apology sigh. And I'm not going to lie, I'm not thrilled. She says, I'm not going to lie, I'm not thrilled. Samantha says, no, you don't want to go to Brazil? And Danielle confirms, I do not. Samantha shares with us she knows how rocky things are between the couple right now, and that there's been nights that Garrick would come over or call to come over and have stayed the night with her and Sam. Sam and Samantha are willing to let that happen, but she has never seen things this bad. And she tries to lighten things up by asking about a particular dress, and Danielle's like, I haven't worn it yet, I like it, but I don't know if it's appropriate to wear being pregnant. Samantha's face initially shows concern, then shock. And she goes, you're pregnant? And Danielle confirms she is. She seems sort of happy and shares she got a blood test done and it's positive. Samantha asks about Garrick and him being in Brazil, and she's like, I haven't even told him yet. So this wasn't planned at all. No, it was a shock. But how does Danielle feel about all of it? Brazil, Natalia, everything coming all at once. And Danielle's like, I know when he left, we're not in a good place, and that's why he left for so long. The separation's the longest they've ever been apart, and she's realizing she could be a single parent because she doesn't know if they're going to stay together. It's quite the revelation, and Samantha is just taking it in. She says if she were in Danielle's shoes, she'd want her husband to be there by her side, and she's very concerned that they're going to separate, and Garrick's going to remain in Brazil, leaving Danielle to care for a newborn and their other children all by herself. She's worried that Danielle is going to feel like she has absolutely no one, and maybe, she thinks aloud, this baby will bring them back together and they can work it all out. And I'm not a fan of the fix-it-all baby, but I understand she just doesn't want Danielle to be left with no help and feeling helpless and hopeless with her 3 children. Danielle continues to roll out more information. She's pregnant, unsure if she's going to remain with Garrick, and supposed to be traveling to Brazil to watch Garrick legally marry Natalia. An international flight and morning sickness would have been bad enough without adding the additional wedding foolishness on top of it. And Samantha's like, when's this wedding supposed to take place? And Danielle's like, sometimes a week, but they haven't gotten the confirmation from the courts or the county or whatever. How does Garrick feel about the new baby? Or how do you think Garrick's going to feel about the new baby? And Danielle's like, I don't know. Our relationship's in a super fragile state, and I'm not sure it's going to bounce back. Plus, Natalia's been super distant, and she understands that Natalia's probably trying to enjoy her time with Garrick, but she doesn't feel like she's welcome at this wedding, and isn't even sure that sisterhood is something that Natalia wants for them. And Samantha feels like there's definitely maybe some selfishness there. Maybe Natalia wants to have Garrick all to herself. And Danielle's like, I feel like I'm third wheeling, even invading on this wedding. Not like I'm supposed to be a part of it. Not like I'm supposed to be a part of this family. Samantha feels like the commitment should be made with Danielle and the boys and Garrick, but it doesn't feel that way. It feels like she wants to take Garrick away, and Danielle can't help to consider that Natalia knew there was trouble in paradise, and so maybe she thought that Danielle and Garrick were just going to break up. Samantha's really worried about Danielle, and she's so sorry that things are not going well. And Danielle's scared, realizing that after all this time together, things might be over, and she'd be doing this on her own. She's like, this timing is just not good. So to end out the episode, Danielle calls Garrick, and she is clearly stressed. he asks how things are going, and she says good, and he's like, oh, I've just been relaxing. I got back from the beach, and she's like, ever since he's been gone, we really haven't connected. And then finding out that she's pregnant without him here has been super hard. She thinks he'll be surprised, and especially due to the position that their relationship is in right now, she's concerned. She's feeling sad, and she really doesn't want to go to Rio at this point. And I don't blame her at all. She asks where Natalia is, and she's out wedding dress shopping. Danielle's like, how is that going? And Garrick's like, listen, it's crazy. It's difficult because of loophole bureaucracy down here. And it's getting close, so hopefully they'll have a date set, and it's supposed to be this weekend. Danielle says it doesn't seem like she's wanted there, so she doesn't think she can come. And Garrick's like, it'll be better when you get here. Danielle reiterates, I'm not feeling wanted there, plus our relationship isn't in a great place. And she shares with us, she's trying to tell him she's pregnant, and she's feeling really apprehensive because she wants this to be a happy, exciting thing, and it does not feel that way right now. She finally gets to it and says that she's pregnant. And he says nothing, and then finally goes, oh. Well, he does spit out that he's surprised with another well, and that it's a blessing, but he's not having any real human reaction to this. Of course, Garrick tries to, Danielle's crying, and she's like, I don't think I can make this trip. She feels like third wheel, and Garrick's like, well, it's going to hurt Natalia's feelings. And Danielle fully breaks down, and she's like, I don't think I can right now. She says, maybe I should let you go for now. And he's like, yeah, I'll call you in a couple days. A couple days? She just told you she's pregnant and you'll call her in a couple days? Okay. He's like, I love you. I'm excited for the baby. And Danielle's like, God put us together and he has never changed that. But I need to be assured so that we can be united front. And they have not been. And she gets off the phone, absolutely heartbroken. And in this moment, I actually genuinely feel for her. So, this last one, the Sherwood family, we're going to go through, and it kind of gives us a lot of backstory and understanding into what in the world is going on with these two. Because Shane's meeting his friend Charlie, that he also met through axe throwing, just like he met his wife. And he feels like Charlie is one of those guys who just really understands and he can count on him, but they haven't seen each other in a while, so he really kind of needs to fill him in on what's been happening and the concerns that he has about Sarah. And I think that Shane's jumping the gun on his concerns, but I also think that he really doesn't want to do this, so he's going to find issues everywhere. So they're playing darts, and Shane says that Ashley met a woman named Sarah, and Charlie wants details. Shane's both hesitant and simultaneously eager when discussing Sarah. He's like, she's beautiful, 28, Ashley and Sarah went on a date, they had a great time, then we went on a second date, and I got to go, and he's like, we were going through questions, and I got a feeling, a bad feeling. And Shane's like, it was so awkward to see Ashley openly flirt with someone, and while he felt awkward, it was good to see her happy. And pressing on, he says he asked Sarah about her previous experience with couples, and his quote here is, here and there, you know, whatever, which is not how Sarah described it or presented herself. He said that Sarah shared that she only sees those couples 2 to 3 times a year, and that's because that's the arrangement with them. And Charlie's like, oh. And Shane feels like Sarah isn't looking for the same things that he and Ashley are looking for. And he point blank asked her about being interested in he and Ashley. And of course, he's very concerned because Sarah didn't want to jump in right away. And Charlie feels like, hey, that's fair. This is really a big commitment. And Shane's like, I don't know. Sarah doesn't seem to want to take steps or initiative to get to know them. And I don't think that's a fair assessment based solely on their last date at all. So Charlie's like, listen, when you're dating just one person, it's bad enough. Opening up a non-traditional dynamic where you're adding another person's thoughts, feelings, and emotions would be twice as much work, if not more. And he doesn't feel like that's for him. He thinks he would be really jealous. And I actually really like Charlie so far. He doesn't just feel like this yes man to Shane. He really listens and he gives answers, but he's there for him. And so he's like, listen, there's questions to be answered, and it should be okay to ask if you guys are looking for the same things. And Shane's like, thank you for validating that. And I am getting Sister Wives flashbacks here. And then says that sometimes he feels like he's the bad guy. I don't think Shane's the bad guy. I think he's just not being honest about whether this is really what he wants and casting a lot of judgment very quickly. And I also think that he and Ashley are expecting way too much, way too quickly. No one's going to immediately jump in and be like, hey, let me make a lifelong commitment to you when I met you 2 days ago. As someone, and someone who would, may not be the person that you would actually want to do that with. Shane says the talk that they had after made it feel like no one was ever going to be good enough in his eyes. And he admits that there are times that he thinks that one of these women might try and take Ashley from him. And I'm glad he can admit that fear to Charlie. That's a very valid fear to have. And Charlie thinks that it seems very normal for Shane to have these concerns. And even though it's not something he's ever lived through, his understanding of how important communication and trust and just talking issues through, that can be super important when things are difficult. And then this is where we get the very real glimpse into why they're doing this. And Shane says that it was jump-started because he had a touch of cancer, in his words. And he's due for a scan, but he's scared. On the couch, he says he was diagnosed with kidney cancer the previous year. He has had the tissue removed from one kidney, but the scan showed there were areas on his other kidney that needed addressed. And he's cancer-free at the moment, but it's probably going to come back, and they're going to have to go through the same things again, and the outcome could be very different. That's scary, for sure. And I really understand his desire to make sure that Ashley feels loved and cared for. That wouldn't be my choice in this circumstance, to find another partner for my partner. But they're trying to figure out what works best for them. And Shane tells Charlie that he just wants Ashley to be taken care of. And Charlie's like, listen, I'm going to be here for you as your friend. If you need a hug or to yell at someone because it's not fair that this is happening to you, I'm here for you. And as someone with a chronic condition, I feel that in my very soul. Because sometimes you do just need to yell and scream about how unfair it is that this is happening to you. And you need a friend who's willing to hear those things and understand your anger and frustration. And especially you need a friend outside of your partner, because your partner is just afraid for what you're going through. And Shane gets tears welling up in his eyes, and Charlie apologizes. But Shane's like, I'm just scared and I don't want to appear weak to Ashley. And Charlie is so validating, reminding him that it's absolutely normal to feel scared and angry in this situation. None of this is easy to be going through. And Shane takes a well-deserved private minute to walk outside. So back at home, Shane and Ashley are talking about his outing with Charlie last night. And he says that he feels relieved to have had that conversation with Charlie and to be able to let out some of what he's feeling. Because Ashley may be his number one confidant, but it's good to have other friends, especially when he's worried that they're not on the same page. He shares that he got really emotional between talking about Sarah and the pregnancy and pushing off his cancer screening. It's been welling up and welling up and welling up, and he doesn't think he's ever cried in front of another man, and it felt good to get this off his chest to someone just not quite so close to the situation as he and Ashley. And she's glad that he had that time. Shane admits that he's been putting off the screening, and Ashley says we both have. It's hard. She understands that it's very different for him than it is for her. They list all the things they've piled one on top of the other, trying to date, having a baby, having a near toddler, cancer remission, a lot going on, and maybe even just too much going on. And Ashley says the cancer diagnosis, they've really tried to prepare themselves emotionally and physically, but it's here. Shane tries to change the subject and asks about Sarah, and Ashley says she's feeling pretty good about it, and they're going to be meeting up again, and she knows that there are questions about the future that are going to need resolved, but she feels good. Shane says that Ashley feels optimistic, but he needs to be sure that Sarah's checking all the boxes he has in his mind, and he wants to feel confident that if something happened to him, he would feel comfortable with her taking care of Ashley. And Ashley says she is cautiously optimistic, but it is clear that Shane is not. I understand Shane's fears in some way, shape, or form. While I don't have cancer, I have a chronic condition that has a lot of things going on. I mean, there is the eventuality that I have to prepare myself for, that I may eventually lose my eyesight. There are also some really other awful things that I've learned recently that kind of go along with this, with memory loss and quality of life issues that sometimes drive people to do things that maybe we wouldn't otherwise do. And so I feel for Shane in that moment, wanting somebody to just understand that these things are unfair and that they shouldn't be happening to anybody. But his desire to see Ashley happy if something should happen for him, while admirable, also I think takes away from the moments that he needs to be spending with her, those moments that he needs to be spending with her to feel confident and to feel cared for. Because God forbid this should be something that eventually takes him from this earth. I wouldn't want him to have an ounce of regret at the end, thinking, gosh, I should have spent more time with her. Gosh, I should have done this. I should have done that. And I genuinely hope for him that that is not the case, because it is definitely a difficult diagnosis. And so I think getting that little bit of insight into the Sherwood family and sort of understanding that Shane is doing this with the understanding that he may not be here to take care of her certainly sort of drives the understanding of what in the world are they doing, because they seemed like the most discombobulated couple out of all of them to me. But I'm getting a little bit of a clearer picture. So that is episode 8. Danielle's pregnant. Shane needs to go get his scans done. The Davises really need to start respecting their Danielle a lot more. And the Ryans, the the Ryans need to be upfront and honest with people and honest with themselves and figure out their own crap. So that's kind of where we're at. Episode 9 is probably going to be a doozy. I know we've got at least a few more to go because we haven't even hit the mid-season trailer episode where they show the Davis family in a hot tub with somebody we've never met before, or Garrick with some girl from Michigan we haven't seen yet. So we've got some time to go. And oh my gosh, that makes me even angrier now knowing Danielle is pregnant and he is off running around again. Ooh, we are going to get some spicy, cozy episodes. We are going to get some spicy, cozy episodes. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, feel free to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, whatever you want to do. I'm here to chat with you. I'm here to have fun with you guys. And yeah, I can't wait to talk to you soon. Bye, guys.